Good morning. Welcome to our second lecture from the Introduction to Management course for engineering students. Today's lecture is addressing Chapter 1, which is Introduction to Management and Organization. So in this chapter, we'll be giving an overview about the basic principles and foundations of management, defining what it is, organizations, and so forth. So first, let's talk about our learning objectives and then move to our content. First of all, we would look at how managers are different from other non-managerial employees. Secondly, we would discuss two very important concepts for management, which are efficiency and effectiveness, and distinguish between them. Thirdly, we would look at the four basic managerial functions. And as a fourth objective, we would look at how different things such as customer service and innovation are quite important for a manager jobs. And finally, we would look at the characteristics of an organization and look at how today's organizations are structured. As we are discussing introduction to management, it's essential actually first to define what is management. Management is an art which involves coordinating and overseeing works of others and activities of them so that all of it would eventually lead to goal accomplishment, and this is done efficiently and effectively. So again, it's the art of getting things done through and with people, and this is usually undertaken with the forces of the 5 F's. We have the men, so the manpower that we use. We have the materials, again, being put into the function. Money, where we get materials, methods, machines, and we hire men. We have the methods, which are the techniques and strategies and different practices undertaken, and we have the machine, which is the actual manufacturing or actually even the know-how or the service delivery technique, not essentially a machine, but these are the 5 M's through which management is undertaken. The key words in defining management is getting things done or getting objectives delivered efficiently and effectively. So these are the two basic concerns that we need to highlight. Efficiency and effectiveness. What are the differences between them? Efficiency, it's more about doing the things right. So it's getting the most output with the least input. Versus effectiveness, which is doing the right things, so it's attaining the organizational objective. So effectiveness is more about the accomplishment of things, whereas efficiency, it's about the way of doing things or delivering them in the most appropriate approach or way. That's the difference or distinction between efficiency and effectiveness. For management to succeed, objectives have to be attained in both ways, efficiency and effectiveness. As we had just been discussing the two concepts of efficiency and effectiveness, this exhibit would help you in making it more visual and processing it further. Any kind of management for an organization strives for low resource waste, which insinuates or stands for high efficiency, the way of using resources, and high goal attainment, which is goal accomplishment, which is high effectiveness. Effectiveness is the end or the goal attainment, which is targeted on a high approach, and efficiency is the means or the approach through which we attain the end, the resource usage, and of course the lower waste or the lower consumption means higher efficiency. So of course this is what management would strive for. So management actually is the approach by which an organization is run, any kind of organization. So what is an organization? An organization is the group or arrangement of people who get together in order to accomplish a specific task or a purpose at hand. So independently or everyone as a standalone cannot accomplish this task alone. Usually organizations have distinct goals and purposes. They are composed of people and they have a specific structure that is preset. So if we look here on our pyramid or organizational pyramid, we will see how an organization is set. It first starts from its values. This is its building block, where usually the founders of the organization have their own ethics, principles, and beliefs that they set and develop the way that the organization would operate with. And then they develop a vision and a mission. A vision is the way forward, what the organization aspires to achieve, where are they going to be, where they will be positioned. So the way forward for the future. And the mission, the actual manifestation. So what do we do about that? How can we do it? Who would do it for us? So this stands for the motivation and purpose. And then, in order to articulate the vision and the mission, this is put forward into strategic objective. So these are things or basic directions, paths, and goals that we want to attain, and in such sequence so that we would fulfill our mission and vision in accordance with the values. And finally, the high articulation, the more specific and tangible objectives should be set out into action plans and KPIs. KPI stands for key performance indicators. So these are what we can say the quartile sub-objectives of different kind of departments to make it clearer for you. So an organization goes from a very high order idea, value, and a vision up to a very detailed, specific action plan and key performance indicator so that finally its objective is attained. So as we just discussed the pyramid of an organization, this organization in its all different stages is composed of the structure, the pyramid, the people it has, the human resources, the people who feed into the company so that they would deliver the objectives, set the plans up from the vision till the KPI, and they have a distinct purpose or a goal that they want to attain. These people that we had just discussed, the one major component of the organization, could come in two forms. They could be managers and non-managers. So what's the distinction between them? Who are managers and who are non-managers, and what are their features? Managers are those who coordinate activities, those who overlook or review the work of others so that they would make sure that the organizational goals are accomplished and delivered. They can be young or old, they can be males or females. Aside of their affiliation or characteristics, there are those who possess the potential to work with different people, coordinate their work, guide and direct, and review the work of others. So we had discussed what do managers actually do, but what about great manager? Any kind of organization aspires to have great manager. It looks really clear that managers are one key ingredient towards the success of an organization. So I wouldn't want any regular manager. I wouldn't settle for that as an organization that strives for success. If I have a great manager, then he can really make my organization succeed more and more. So what actually do they do? Here is what great managers do. They stand out. They discover what's really different about each person, what's unique. They accomplish it. So they polish what is really strong and unique about each person and they focus on it. They know and value these unique capabilities of each person, and they know how best to integrate all of the potentials and unique capacities and abilities of their employees and integrate them within a bigger pattern of a coordinated plan so that eventually they would steer all of the organization, all of the potential that they have, the 5 M's that we earlier discussed, all of them towards the attainment of organizational objectives. That's what makes great managers different, and that's what they do, actually do. And these are some of the concerns that any of us should work on enhancing so that he would be able to perform as a better manager. The number one is to select better off people, the right people that would fit the requirements of the organization and the position that they are hired in. Be a good listener so that you would be able to know what are the issues, what are the problems, and where are the deviations. And maybe even listen to solutions. Communicate clearly because this will facilitate eradicating any kind of problem or resolving it. Lead by example. Do not preach and don't practice. Lead by example. What you say should happen is actually what you should do. Delegate different kind of responsibilities that could be delegated because a good manager should know how to strategize his potential in time. And always be positive and constructive. Do not give destructive feedback, because this will bring down the willingness and the hopes of your subordinates. Thank and reward your people. Give everyone his due, and appreciate them well. Develop and train your people, because if you do not work on that, their talents or their skills will become obsolete. For example, if you are working in a specific sector of technology and you do not work on enhancing and upgrading your employees, so whatever kind of product that you're providing will become obsolete after time because they are not well developed. And be flexible, because this is what happens in business and this is what happens with time. Fluctuations, fashions and fates going up and down. So you should be flexible in order to accommodate with all the different changes that have happened. Like just what happened with Corona, and the different kind of fluctuation that happen in the work arrangement, that happens in the type of demands in the market, that happen in the consumer preferences. All organization had to take that in and accommodate and provide products and services that would fit and cater for the needs of the market. While we are at discussing managers, it's worthwhile identifying women in managerial positions around the world. You would see that women's representation in management is varying across countries. So in the States, it's around 50.6, in Philippines, it's approaching 60%, Japan around 10, Germany and Canada mid-30s%, Australia for almost 42%, whereas in the Arab countries, it's less than 10%, and that's as per 2008 census. If we look at top managerial positions, we would see that the percentage goes far, far below 3%, and it's even non-available as in census in lots of regions, especially the Arab countries. So this is yet another concern to be investigated in women's managerial positions and women in management. Managerial levels come on three different levels, and yet there is the non-managerial position. As we said, employees could be either managers or non-managers. So non-managers come on the base, the bottom of the pyramid, whereas managers come on three different ranks: first-line manager, middle managers, and top managers. If we are looking at the distinction between the three kinds of managers, we will see that the first line managers are those who are in direct contact with non-managerial employees. They handle their work, they supervise them, and they could be titled as office managers, department managers, line managers, things like that. Also, we have the middle managers. They are those who manage the work of the first line managers. So they could be the ones running stores, or rather division managers, a branch manager who has different department manager working underneath them, a general manager with several sub managers. Yeah. And finally, we have the top managers, where they are those who are responsible for making organizational wide-scale decisions, more strategic. They establish plans, they set up goals, and their decisions affect the overall organizations. So we've just distinguished between the different kind of managers, there's three classes of them, and in addition the non-managerial employees. So now let's discuss what do actually they do. What kind of things are they involved in? So there are three ways of defining what managers do. The first is by looking to the functions that they perform. The second is by looking at the roles that they do play. And third approach is by looking at the skills that they need. So let's take them one by one. So first, let's start with the functions that the managers do perform. Managers work on planning. Planning is the process of setting up the goals to be attained and defining the actions that are necessary in order to achieve these goals. It more or less addresses the question of where does the organization want to be in the future and how to get there. So it's larger strategic decision of looking to the future of the company and how it wants to be positioned, what kind of goals it wants to be attaining, and how to go around doing so. This is the first function that a manager would do, the planning one. The second function is the organizing. It's more about putting things in alignment and arranging it so that the work would be structured accordingly and in sequence so that the eventual organizational goals will be attained. It more or less taps into determining what kind of task that needs to be done, which comes first, who will do what, how they will be managed and coordinated parallelly or back to back. This involves assigning tasks, grouping tasks into department, and allocating resources to department in order to cater to the tasks that they are assigned to, or in other words, accomplish and implement, deliver the tasks that they are assigned to. Okay, so that is the second function that a manager would do, which is the organizing one. The third function is the leading one, which is more about working with and through people. As we agreed, a manager is someone who stays around people, get them aligned to deliver a specific job, and this would lead to the final goal accomplishment of the organization. So it's expected that this would happen by motivating and leading these group members to achieve such organizational objective, and moreover, it's done by communicating to these employees so that a common shared culture is created where values are shared, and eventually the motivation and leading part for these employees would happen so that the organizational goals will be attained. When you look at leadership, we find that there are three basic types. If anyone is interested in looking into leadership, you'll see that there are various other types, but here we are talking about the three classic or three really distinct and different types of leadership: the autocratic, the democratic, and the free reign. If you look at the autocratic one, we would see that this is a leader-centered style, where under this style of leadership, there is a huge centralization of authority with the leader. Everything is centered and at the hands of the leader. He takes all the decisions by himself, all the powers are exercised in his hands, and all the decision making is his. The workload of the employees is designed and crafted by him. Tight control is there over all of the employees, and they are all bound to follow the orders and directions of him. So that's the type of the autocratic leader. If you look at the democratic leader, this is the other end of the story. Under this other kind of style, a decentralization of authority is there, a delegation of power is available to the subordinates, and final decision is usually taken with consultation with subordinates. So a two-way communication rather than the one-way available in the autocratic leadership style. No, a democratic one has a two-way communication channel where delegation of authorities, common decision-making in consultation with the subordinates, and people can function appropriately under his reign. There is a limit within which people can function. So a democratic is almost on the other side of the equation of the autocratic style. The third type of leader under the leading function would be the free reign, which is a little bit different style, where here there is complete freedom given to the subordinates. The entire decision-making process is entrusted to them and given to their hands with the least minimal intervention undertaken on side of the leader. So the group operates on its own with minimal direction and guidance as well as intervention from the leader. Very free flow of communication, and in this style there is no exercise of power, but there is a maintaining of contact and communication with the subordinates, and they themselves are the ones who have to exercise self-control, unlike the earlier two other styles where there is an extreme exercise of control in the autocratic, a moderate or little bit low level of self-control and monitoring in the democratic. In the free reign, there is complete self-control on part of the employees only. The fourth function is the controlling one, where in the controlling, a manager would usually go around monitoring, comparing, and correcting work. It's about keeping hands-on. There are preset goals and objectives that a manager is required to attain. So he keeps an eye and monitor the performance of the organization to make sure that the performance is delivered. He works on comparing the actual deliverable, the actual output with the planned output or planned results. and in case there are any kind of deviations, he works on doing corrective actions or developing alternative plans so that the performance will be upgraded and enhanced, and the actual results would match the planned results. And these are the 4 basic functions that we had discussed. The first is more about the planning. As we said, it's defining goals, establishing strategies, and developing plans to coordinate activities. And as a manager gets more advanced in the managerial positions, the 3 we had discussed, the more he practices this function. The organizing, which is more about arranging logistics, what tasks to be done, who would do it, how they would be arranged in group, what about the reporting relationships, what about the decision-making mechanisms. Thirdly, the leading, which is more about motivating employees, directing them, selecting the most effective communication channel, and resolving any kind of conflict. And finally, the controlling part, which is about monitoring the performance, comparing actual performance with previously set goals, and correcting any kind of deviation if found. So by that, we had discussed the functions that managers discuss. Secondly, we said that another way of looking at what managers do is by the roles that they do play. Roles are specific expectations or behaviors a manager should be exercising. Well, managers need to have thoughtful thinking and practical doing to succeed. So they need to put their minds into it, into the whole managing process, and they need to practice it well in order to succeed. Basically, there are 10 groups of roles that managers do that are grouped into 3 basic groups by a very famous researcher called Mintzberg. Mintzberg classified the roles into 3: interpersonal role, the transfer of information role, and decision-making roles. So let's have a look at each of them. Under the interpersonal role, there are 3 sub-roles: a figurehead, a leader, and a liaison. Under the information role, there are 3 other roles: a monitor, a disseminator, and a spokesperson. Under the decisional role, there are 4 different roles: a negotiator, a resource allocator, a disturbance handler, and an entrepreneur. So these are the 10 basic roles under the 3 subcategories. So now let's move to discussing each one of them to try to understand more insights about that. Interpersonal roles are roles that are done by the manager due to his former position within an organization, alongside the contacts and relation inside and outside the company with different kind of networks. So he acts as a figurehead, where he is a symbol, a head for the company, doing a number of duties that are of either a legal or social natures. For example, when the manager goes into an opening ceremony, he is a leader responsible for motivating and directing the employees as well, and he is a liaison, where he maintains contacts with outside parties to provide favors and information. So a liaison, a figurehead, and a leader. The second set of roles are the informational ones, which are yet again coming from the formal position held within an organization by a manager, him conducting communication inside and outside of the organization. By doing so, he exercises 3 roles. He is a monitor, receiving lots and lots of information feeds, and he is the one who taps into things that are that needs to be communicated internally and externally within a company. He is a disseminator, transmitting information from outside sources or different employees to other members in the company, so from inside or outside. A spokesperson, he is someone who relates information to outsiders about the organization. For example, if he is in a stakeholder meeting, and he is talking about the plan ahead or the upcoming 5-year plan, or talking about a policy that the company is signing up, an environmental protection something. So he acts all of these roles: a spokesperson, a disseminator, and a monitor under the informational role. Thirdly, there is a decisional role, where a manager, due to his former authority and position, has access to information, and he is in a position where he can resolve different kind of problems. So he acts as an entrepreneur, where he searches for different kind of opportunities and different kind of projects that might serve the company and bring around change. He acts as a disturbance handler, where he takes any kind of corrective action whenever the organization faces important disturbances. He is a resource allocator, making and approving decisions to allocate resources for different departments or to address different organizational decisions. And he is a negotiator who's responsible for representing the organization in major negotiation. For example, if he is doing negotiation with the labor union about wages or with different kind of raw material provider or things like that. So after discussing the roles, which was the second set of things to study or to consider when we are looking at the point of what do managers actually do, we move to the third type of comparison or studying what do managers do, which is the skills. As per the researcher Katz, managers have three different sets of managerial skills. There are technical skills, human skills, or actually known as interpersonal skills or human skills, and conceptual skills and analytical skills. If you're looking at the technical skills, they are more about the know-hows and techniques and proficiency in a specific field, using these tools and procedures in order to attain what's needed on the job. Whereas the human or interpersonal skills are those who are related to working efficiently and effectively with other people, and a key component in that is listening. Thirdly, the conceptual skills, which are more or less analytical, related to the ability to think, conceptualize about abstract and complex situations and concerns, and take up decisions. If you're thinking of different three managerial positions, the low-level management, the middle-level management, and top-line manager, and when we say low-level manager, this is the first-line manager, yeah? We would see that conceptual skills is highly needed for top manager, whereas technical skills is less needed for top manager. And the exact opposite on the other side of the equation, whereas low or first level manager need more concentration of technical skills versus less concentration on conceptual skills. The norm, or what's essentially needed at high levels for all types of manager, are the human skills. Why? Because this is the key point. You deal with people, you manage people, you motivate them in order to attain what you want them to attain. If you don't have the potential to drive them and motivate them, then you would not be a successful manager. So human skills are needed on high levels for all levels of managers, top, middle, and lower level or first line managers. Well, as we had discussed a manager job after we had distinguished between the different kinds, first level, middle level, and top level, and what kind of roles and functions and skills do they have, we have to acknowledge the fact that due to different forces of change, which is inevitable and happening all around us, the manager job is changing. So let's have a look on a couple of the changes that are happening and look at what kind of implication or impact it would have on a manager's job. First of all, the digitization or the changing technology. Development of virtual workplaces and telecommuting with more flexible workforce had seen interest or trending up from the mid-80s and the 1990s worldwide. Nonetheless, what we had been going through in 2020-2021 due to the pandemic and its implication had heightened that and actually changed the face of work. Most people nowadays have companies accepting the fact that they would telecommute or work from home or from different kind of places, and virtual workplaces are set up everywhere. The issue of the work-life balance is raised due to the overriding interest between the fact that work can be bought everywhere and at any time. So this is yet another concern. All of this comes under the changing technology digitization arm. If we are looking at the changing security threats, we would call for the globalization card. Globalization, with the huge opening up of gateways between countries and continents, had caused security threats. Nowadays, in your domains, in the IoT, the cloud computing, and security systems, we can see how this had caused rise of huge sectors and domains and works organization that hadn't been there. All of this in order to mitigate or control the risk, manage the risk, because there is uncertainty all around us, and there are restructured workplaces due to that. Also, another concern would be the higher emphasis placed on organization and managerial ethics. We hear a lot about scandals and issues and problems that organizations and multinationals do face. All of this leads to development of or revisiting of values, trust within an organization, and high accountability, meaning that each organization becomes more accountable or responsible for whatever kind of good or bad deeds that it commits. People are more concerned and have high emphasis now on organization and managerial skills. Also, the increased competitiveness, which is a norm due to the higher concentration of organizations now on catering for the customer service and competing on that, delivering high innovation and efficiency and productivity. So all of these are different driving forces that had affected how managers would perform. If you look at how it is changing from the point of view of increasing importance of customers, actually customers are our end destination. That's the reason why organization exists, because they want to cater for their needs and provide goods and services for them. So managing the customer relationship is a key responsibility for all managers and employees, and that's always why we hear the term the customer is always right. So providing a consistent, high-quality customer service is essential for survival and for maintaining competitiveness. A lot of jobs require close contact with customer, and dealing with customers with fluctuating and changing demand is really, really hard. The power of social media. Though the social media empowers organization and make their existence and make their promotion, advertising, and good deeds really out there, with limited costs and with high dispersion and high accelerated force. Nonetheless, it is double-sworded, and it can pose huge risks and threats in case any bad word of mouth is there. The importance of customer satisfaction is even heightened in service sectors that are now more and more prominent and important in the economic breakdown. As you can see here from the Arab countries, the service sector or percentage of employment, it's almost above 50%, and services value added or the value added in the economy is again high. That's the case in selected Arab countries, in non-Gulf countries, and in emerging economies as well. The key here is that the service value added or the value of the economy is really, really big, which is the percentage of the GDP. So catering for customers' need is really essential. Another concern is innovation. If any of you is keeping tabs on how things are changing or how the new products or apps and services are provided, you will see that there is no shortage in that by no means. Innovation is all about doing things differently, exploring new ideas and new uncharted territories, and taking up risks so that new products and services could be delivered. A successful manager should be the one encouraging employees to be aware of any kind of opportunity, uh, search for anyone, and seize it whenever it's possible. So if we look about this, how about the Arab countries? Do you think that we score appropriately on the innovation indicators? Here you can see some selected Arab countries as per the Arab Competitiveness Report, and this identifies how innovation is classified or scored in some selected Arab countries. Egypt is not one of them, but there is an average for the Arab countries, more or less, as long as other countries. So as you can see, Japan is a top flyer here on the innovation indicator as per that consensus. So we are in the overall innovation scale 2.57, still deviating or behind from the overall innovation score. Yeah, so you're not performing very high, but still on an average level that is subject to enhancement and adaptation. So as we were saying that the managers or the face of the manager job is changing, there's a focus on the customer where they are the reason for existence, and managing the relationship with them is the responsibility of our managers and employees. So providing consistent high quality customer service is essential. The focus on this technology is important because managers must make employees get on board with the new technology, get interested to oversee social interaction and challenges involved in using any kind of new technology. The focus on sustainability, which is the ability to achieve business goals and increase the shareholder value by looking into economic, environmental, and social opportunities and integrating them within the business strategies. Again, the focus is on the social media where different electronic communications that users create online and share ideas, information, and personal messages and other content is essential and does influence highly on the success and failure of organizations. As such, it looks really hard to be managers. So what drives some or prevents some from attaining that? Rewards and challenges. If we look at the positive side of the rewards, we will see that a work environment in which members can work to their best potential, they can be creative, they can be imaginative. It's an environment where it helps others to find meaning and fulfillment in the work. A manager supports, coaches, and nurtures others, works with a lot of people. He receives recognition and status. He plays an influential role, and of course, there is the appropriate compensation in different sorts of salaries, bonuses, and others. And good managers are always needed and appreciated by organizations. If we look at the downside or the challenges, we see that it's about the hard work. It's about the many duties that are more clerical rather than managerial that might turn off some people. It is about dealing with lots of personalities, so you have to accommodate to these differences. It's about making do with limited resources or making it fly and succeed with limited potential or limited resources in hand. It's about motivating workers in chaos or in uncertain situations and circumstances, using the knowledge, the skills, and the ambition and experience of a diverse group of people, blend it all together, steer them towards success, and succeed depending on others' performance definitely is not something easy. So if you're looking at the Arab model of management, is there such a thing? Is there what's called an Arab model of management? The Arab manager, like any kind of manager, performs all of his function, planning, organizing, leading, and directing. And yet he has to reflect on his own culture and the context within which they live. So different behaviors and management styles from one country to another in Arab countries are witnessed. An Arab model, per se, hadn't emerged because there are a lot of political and economic disturbances, and there is a social tension in the Arab societies, a continuous controversy between the old and the new, the traditional and the modern, and we see this in all countries around us, despite the changes and despite the higher acceptance rate of the changes, like in the UAE, like in Saudi Arabia, but still, there is still the give and take between the old and the new. So historically, there are some influences that had affected Arab management. Of course, the role of religion plays a dominant role. The role of culture and tribal and family tradition, where you always go back to the heritage. The part about the colonial bureaucracies and Ottoman Empire, as we all know, the region or the Arab region, lots of countries had been preoccupied, and we had been part of the Ottoman Empire. So again, this had shaped the way we manage things. Yet Managerial sciences come from Western thought, so Western influence as well has its imprint on Arab management thinking, and eventually the institutions that we deal with, the governments and their intervention, the political constraints as per the type of political regime per country or as per the type of constitution per country, all of these are things that do play part in shaping the Arab management thinking. Like in any other country, their own specific management school or school of thought is shaped by all of these factors altogether. By this, we had concluded our first chapter, and now let's do a little bit of reading related to that, which is what to do when you have a bad boss. And this is an HBR article or a Harvard Business Review article, and you can find the URL down at the bottom of this slide and towards the end of our presentation today. So let me walk you through the basics of this article. Why do you think people stay in their jobs with bosses they don't like? This is the basic theme of the article. According to the article, people can stay in their jobs with bosses they don't know or they don't like, for many reasons. That they don't have energy to look for a new job, that they really like their community or their colleagues, that they need the salary, they can afford to pay to have any kind of pay cuts or to quit their jobs. There are no other jobs out in the market, that they don't want to lose the benefits. Maybe they had invested a lot to start in somewhere new, or it pays too well, or that they have skills, they don't have skills needed to get something different, or they are still on the hope that things would get better. All of these are different kind of things of not letting go or sticking around while you are having a bad job or a bad boss. If that's the case, how can a person manage? How can he survive and navigate through it so that he wouldn't be psychologically affected? The article gives us some strategies to deal with bad bosses, keeping in mind that this depends on the kind of the boss that you are facing. The first thing is that forget giving feedback, make requests. This is usually a good idea when you're talking to your boss and see what's going on. If you have a difficult boss, he might not be open to hearing feedback. So forget giving the feedback, make requests. Try making specific requests of what you need. State the resources, state the kind of support that you need, explain your rationale, talk about the benefits that would result in, think about the timing of when and how you run this conversation with this kind of boss. Make sure that he's calm and he's in a positive mood. Be prepared, practice, and wait up for the reaction. So this is the first strategy. Secondly, engage with the support network. Having a strong support network is really critical when you deal in an emotionally challenging situation. So if you are in a company that you're not happy with, you're having a boss that you don't want to work with, having support from colleagues to encourage you is really good. So socializing would reduce your stress. You can resort to life coaches, therapists, or even other trained professionals. You can explore other opportunities within the organization. There might be ways to let go of such a toxic boss without leaving the company. So switching positions or department might be interesting for you. Consider going to the HR, but research how the HR in your company deals and supports with employee complaints before you do so, because this might not be the best approach. But when should you let go of all of these four different strategies and really go with considering leaving? This should happen when you should accept that quitting could be the best solution. Sometimes there are signs that you are unsafe physically or mentally. If you spend a lot of time thinking about your boss rather than your work. If you are much stressed from work and this affects the rest of your life. If your self-esteem has really gone down and plunged, then you have to pull a plug. This is the time to go, and this is your permission to have a career change. So what should you do? Make the decision to quit and do it professionally, gracefully, and tactfully. And as you do so, line up for your next move. Just start with the job search. Give proper notice, follow the procedure, do not just withdraw, and don't make it quite emotional. Be as professional as possible. Create a transition timeline, meaning that draft up a plan of when you should leave and where you should go, how you should finish your pending projects, and how to enroll or join in your next job. Be prepared to go early because you might have a really an unpleasant job. You might dismiss you the minute you give your notice or clearance that you will resign. Do not badmouth because this will eventually be on your record with your old employer and with your new employer. People don't forget. And this is the link for your article if you are interested in checking it more, and hoping that today's lecture and article have been interesting for you. Thank you.